Is the Octatrack Mark II worth it in 2023? The answer is it depends on who you are and what you're using it for. But I would say that yes, it's worth it for a lot of people, and it's absolutely worth it for me. I'm not going to do a rundown of the specs because they're literally endless, and prices are variable. Get one used on Reverb or Reddit or something. But I'm going to talk about why it definitely is worth it for me and why it might be worth it for you. You can do a lot of really cool stuff with the Octatrack, of course. Anything that looks like this should be able to practically make you breakfast. And I'm just going to talk about how I've been using it recently and why it's particularly inspiring. I've been diving into old guitar loops recently. So I'm going to play you the guitar loop that came from. It's a little bit long form, so maybe I'll just show you some pictures of my dog or something while that plays. Oh, and stick around a bit at the end of the video for a little bit of an update and some ramblings. So there are a lot of cool pedals involved in this, and I built it on my looper, recorded it to Logic Pro via an amp, chopped it up, cut the sample, and then assigned it to this track. So we have different trigs here that I've placed to chop it up. As you can hear, I wanted to keep the flowy, pulsing nature of this. And by pulsing, I mean I wanted to add a pulsing nature to it because I have sent an LFO to the amplitude volume on the quarter note to go along with my kick pattern. So one reason I think the Octatrack is so worth it is because this type of workflow, this like sample chopping of long form ambient stuff, is just so easy and intuitive. And arguably this is the same on the Digitact, but the thing with the Octatrack is that it just has so much more sample memory. So for this context, it's just a little bit more useful for me right now. I want to show you my kick track by itself because I think it's pretty fun. So you can hear the pulsing 4 on the floor rhythm, and then I have all of these additional trigs placed where you can see I've locked them to different samples that are, populated in the sample slots. Some of these are lower, some of these are placed around the stereo field, some of them are clickier, but it kind of just adds like a nice sort of driving rhythm to the kick track. And now we have our snare track, which is also our hi-hat track. So we have 3 different samples here. We have the hi-hat sample. And this was kind of tedious, but what I've done here is I have parameter locked pretty much every single step to be a slightly different volume. And then I have this lighter snare kind of clap sound. You see I've dropped the hi-hat on certain trigs just to kind of add like a little bit of a breath, some pause in an unexpected place to kind of add to that more human feel. And then also I have this very loud, thunky clap sound, which I love. I actually, just before recording this, turned the volume down of that significantly because it was really loud. It might still be loud, but I think it's a nice sort of like punctuative effect. I think that's a word, punctuative. So in addition, I've added this noise sample. Again, have it pulsing with an LFO. Just kind of helps it breathe a bit. And then I also have this ride sample, which, similarly to the hi-hat, I've parameter locked volumes, but I did that with the live record. So you can see there's some data recorded to the steps that don't even have trigs on them. That's because I didn't program the steps individually. I just hit record play and then bumped the knob very so gently to get some variance in the volume. So this is the main meat and potatoes of this beat here. I also added in this violin sample. And it's a longer sample. And it's really beautiful. And I like those sort of like the finger sounds on the strings that you get with a little wing in the middle. But I have just sort of held this drone note. To make sure we don't get any of those out of key pitches in there. And there's a whole bunch of delay on that sample as well to sort of get it breathing and bouncing around the stereo field. And those are my settings if you care. For what it's worth, I've also programmed in this bass synth, but I don't particularly like the way it's blending with everything. Nor do I like the progression that I chose, even though it kind of works within the key. It gives it a, I don't know, kind of a different context that I'm not super happy with, so I'm going to revisit that. But everything minus the bass sounds like this. Okay, so what happened there? Well, I changed patterns, and we've got some new samples loaded into this project, and we've also changed the part because we want to use different slot assignments for the different tracks. So I just created a copy of the pattern, and then I copied part 1 onto part 2, knowing I wanted to keep a lot of the percussive elements similar. And again, I want to talk about the sample length here because I have another long-form percussive sample that I have implemented, and my project memory would be running pretty low on the Digitact at this point because I have other banks in this project with a lot of shared samples, but also probably around 30 samples total, and a lot of them are really long. So it's nice being able to sort of manage all of these sounds that you can kind of create as a palette in one single project with a bunch of different songs in your different banks. So many samplers can do this. You can do this in a DAW. You could do this with MPCs in a more DAW-like experience. But again, the Octatrack does it for me because it just feels like an instrument with all of its quirks and downsides and limitations. It really can do so much, but the way it makes me work is my favorite part about it. And when you hear traditional instrumentalists, like a guitarist, for example, talk about why they love their instrument, maybe unreasonably so, it's usually more often than not about a feeling. It's about how it feels to play and what it inspires them to play. It's not about what material the saddle is made out of, or if it's a synthetic bone nut, or if it's made out of illegally poached ivory. I really do think that people tend to get a bit too caught up in specs. And to be completely honest, in the world of samplers and groove boxes and synth hardware in general, there's like not a bad option out there, in my opinion. There's something for everyone, and there are a lot of good options at each tier. Let me know down below if you think there's like truly an objectively shitty piece of gear out there, because I'd love to talk about it, but most of what I've looked into, it's all good. Everything sounds great and is relatively fully featured for a specific use case. So I urge you to just try as much as you can and find what really clicks and feels good to play. Anyway, here's a sample that I added to the second pattern. I really didn't change it too much. There's a bit of time stretching going on. My project is 81 BPM and the sample is 70 BPM. But it's kind of shuffly and noisy anyway, so it works. My kick track is the same. And this shuffly pattern takes the place of this track. So it kind of like creates this strange frantic energy, makes it a little more mysterious and ambient in a way without slowing things down. And in fact, I would argue that that type of energy kind of livens things up, even though it's less crisp and defined as we progress into our second pattern. I've also altered track 4, which is where our ride cymbal was. And I'm just using these trigs. And I applied a very small amount of the retrig to every step and have an LFO that's kind of pumping things a little bit. So similarly, maybe less crisp and defined, but more frantic, more soundscapey. And it works really well to kind of fill out this sort of pulsing noise sound. So this is like, I don't know, kind of a cool creepy crawly sloshy vibe. And then with the violin, which I didn't change at all yet for this pattern. But the main thing you'll probably notice here is this. But if you look, all the trigs are the same. All I've done here is changed the LFO from a saw wave at 16 to an inverse saw wave at 32. That's all it is. Two totally different vibes achieved with just a few simple changes. Another reason I absolutely love the Octatrack. It just scratches an itch that not a lot of other devices do, and the funny part is that I haven't even touched the crossfader for this jam, and I worked on this for maybe, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours on and off yesterday, programming all of this. And usually one of the first things I do is start setting up scenes with the crossfader, but I was just kind of so enamored by the sequencing capabilities of the Octatrack that I haven't even gotten there yet. I have absolutely no doubts that I could create multiple full songs out of just these two patterns and setting up maybe 3 or 4 different scenes with the crossfader. Maybe I should have put this at the beginning, but I wanted to make this video to let you know the Octatrack is worth it for me because it inspires me to make music. You may have the same exact experience with another sampler, but this one's really stolen my heart for the time being. So a couple of quick things. I always forget to mention I have a bunch of affiliate links in the description of all my videos. If you're thinking about purchasing an electronic music device and want to support a local independent shop, I would highly urge you to check out the Perfect Circuit affiliate links. They've sponsored a bunch of videos on the channel. I do get a decent little kickback from any purchases you make from them using those links. So that's really super helpful if you want to support the channel. Another obvious way to support the channel is to just support via Patreon. There are options for just like a couple of dollars a month there. I also do offer one-on-one lessons on different devices, obviously specializing in Electron stuff, but I can get people up and running with the OP1, even though I sold mine recently. And just talking about building a synth setup for you and kind of doing like consultation in that regard. Really, whatever you want to talk about, I'm there to help you out. As long as it falls within my wheelhouse and I'm comfortable with it, of course. But yeah, this particular video isn't sponsored or anything, so I just wanted to take a moment to those of you who wanted to stick around and listen, just to say that any way that you would like to monetarily support the channel is fantastic. But I also totally understand if you're just here to watch and learn stuff, because life is expensive as hell right now. So no pressure. At the very least, I hope you're learning and enjoying the videos that I put out. Also, I'm going to try to be better about posting stuff to Patreon, like the audio from these videos and hopefully some sample packs. I want to put these guitar loop sample packs on my Patreon. Anyways, that is enough from me for today. I really appreciate you stopping by. Hope you enjoyed the tunes, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.